if you don't play around with it, if you don't get educated on what is what and what's the difference, terminology is not going to solve it, and bans or bills are also not going to solve it.
Welcome to the Regulating AI podcast with Sanjay Puri. AI is changing the world faster than rules can keep up. So, how do we protect people without killing progress? Each week, Sanjay brings you inside conversations with global leaders, policymakers, and innovators who are wrestling with that exact question. So, if you're curious about the future of technology and how it's governed, you're in the right place.
Co-founder of Earkick, a company reimagining how humans interact with sound and technology, Karin brings a unique perspective at the intersection of ethics, innovation, and sensory experience in an AI conversation.
Before we jump in with Karin, I want to find out, Karin, a little bit about you. You ran the music factory for 19 years, teaching music. Then you pivoted to becoming a mental health tech entrepreneur. Was there a moment where you thought, I've taught enough people how to play piano? Now I need to teach AI how to listen to humans. So we have a global listener base of policy experts, AI entrepreneurs, and others. Tell them, how did you get to be at the intersection of mental health and AI?
Music has a direct connection to almost every person's heart in the world. It's a universal language, right? We don't have translation problems. We have maybe different tastes, but it's a unique way of reaching someone beyond their capability, let's say, to express themselves or their capability to read, because everyone has a connection to music. And I grew aware of that. The next thing that I grew aware of was that the majority of my students, they were youth, you know, kids, teens. They, yes, they wanted to connect with music. They wanted to maybe be empowered to play the piano, but their underlying need and the reason why they stuck around from, let's say, age 6 to 20 when they had to leave for university was that for some reason I had created a space, high school, where they were heard. And it sounds very trivial, but it's not. It's a very human need. It's an unmet need to this day to matter, to be heard, and to be led or guided part of that way. You know, a teenager comes in with the typical teenage problems, a mother comes in with her problems, maybe marriage, whatever, and we don't talk about those problems, but we do this through music. And when I realized how big the impact can be when you reach someone directly in a safe space with the right technique, you can change a complete life. And it's no longer about music or about being educated. It's about not being alone on that journey, um, to master life, to master your emotions, to interpret something, and to make yourself heard. And when I realized that after those many years, I was like, okay, I can change the lives of, let's say, a city if I teach everyone or my employees teach people. But that's nothing in, in the scope of the problem of the world where we need this kind of connection. And that's when technology became really, really big and important. And I saw that coming. And I was like, okay, how can I be that companion? How can it be that guidance, that listening ear, that interaction that people need on a much bigger scale? It's still the same mission. It's still the same thing, but with much more power to change lives while we can. Yeah, at that time it was more the young people, the kids, the teenagers who felt like the traditional way of teaching music was not theirs because it was full of limitations, and you have to learn first how to do this and you have to practice first. All this was stifling them. And the way I taught it, it was like, hey, this is a language. And this is how you can express yourself. And you can learn the language in a way that it helps you be yourself, be the best version of yourself. Now, the same is with mental health. And there's a lot of connection between music and mental health because it's very vulnerable. And so the same way of reaching someone and taking them by their hand, but empowering them to walk by themselves eventually, is the basic thesis underneath Earkick.
So, Karen, just shifting topics. Something that we want to talk a lot about is in February 2024. 14-year-old Sewell Setzer, he took his life after chatting with a chatbot. From what it's been reported, that the chatbot encouraged suicidal thoughts. As someone who designs AI for mental health, what went through your mind when you heard about that case?
I have kids. I have a grandchild even, and I'm also helping to raise two teenagers right now. And I love this age because they're becoming grown-ups. They have so much for them. And the mother of this 14-year-old also said he was a wonderful person. They're full of potential, right? And it was just devastating for me because imagine that at a scale and all the ways that this could have been done differently. Nobody builds a technology to kill someone. Nobody builds that. But sometimes our incentives, people's incentives, are led astray, and they don't think through what their users on the other end are and who they are and what their unmet needs is, where this can go. And without pointing fingers, I think if you don't know humans well that you're serving, if you don't obsess with observing them and walking in their shoes, these things will keep happening. And every life, this life was one too many. Every life that is in danger, it doesn't even have to go to suicide, is one too many. And for me, it was like many things. Like we all failed this kid. Why is it possible for him to be on the phone or on the computer for 10 hours a day? How is it possible that his environment didn't get access to him? I'm saying. So he has a wonderful mother and parents, I'm sure. How is it possible that he had such a need and such an urge and such a desire that was easily exploited? That we all fail here. And I want to be part of the solution, and I am part of the solution. And I encourage everyone to not stay stuck in the drama headlines and all the assumptions, but be very practical. There isn't a person who has a role in this. What we can build that is safe.
Something that the former Surgeon General had talked about, the epidemic of loneliness that's, at least in the United States, that's happening. But what makes teens so uniquely vulnerable to these systems, Karen?
Teens, by definition, are evolving. They're in their most formative years. They're trying to create their own or find their own identity. At the same time, they are already, kind of, they have to kind of sort of split from their parents, split from their families' ways to be able to be their own selves. But at the same time, their brain hasn't developed in a way that they could oversee things or make decisions like a grown-up. They they're flooded with hormones, and everything is a first. I saw this with my kids. I'm seeing it with the kids that I'm raising now, and I see that this everywhere. After the fact, after something has happened, then you recognize it. But for a teenager, everything is a first. They may have some need to feel close to someone. I'm not even talking about loneliness. That's like that's even further. But it's not like they can make a step back and say, "Oh, I'm feeling this urge to be close to someone," or someone is interested in me, and this gives me such and such feelings. No, it's they explore because they are made to explore. their nature and their urge. And what they need to do is go out and explore and find things, take risks. And the environment that they are given, if that environment exploits that, and in times of change, in these formative years, any, let's say, bad or malicious influence is one too many.
A shortage of mental health professionals, availability freely of these chatbots. How does one thread that needle to make sure we provide help, but provide it in a safe way?
So I think technology is not going to go away. AI is not going to go away. We need to create and keep creating solutions that are can be embedded regardless of your financial background, right? Because not everyone has access to mental health professional, even if there were any that are embedded in where people spend most of the time, whether it's school or work, and that are easy to handle. And I say this with the ease of handle because too many people, like a majority, may know where the help is, may understand that there are approaches and reframing techniques, but it's too cumbersome to get there. In my time, it was the library or you had to go to a doctor. Today, it's like if it's too complicated, someone who's already in a weak place is not going to reach out, it's not going to read the book, is not going to search for it. Maybe they don't even know how to search. And that's why we have to have systems. And here's where AI and technology come in that sense where someone is at, that can make sense of context and biomarkers, and that can interact that in a way that is adequate and based on the data, based on the situation of each individual. This is something in a perfect world that maybe a human could do. But reality is different. People are very busy. Parents don't always have the headspace. And in school, I mean, I don't have to start talking about how big these classes are and how little and how time each teacher has, and how they are also, at the point of crisis now. So, in short, there is no easy way, but there is a collaborative way. And in that collaborative way, technology and AI will play a very important role. Early enough, be there early, seamlessly, easy to access, but not be the only thing. And then get our youth from being children to being adults, going through struggles, not trying to fix the struggles, but making them strong enough that they can master this time without getting caught into all these pitfalls that we see lots of headlines about in the media.
Can the chatbots play a positive role in terms of reducing the loneliness crisis of some of these, let's say, teens to speak about?
A chatbot or a technology that bridges certain very rough moments. Let's say 3 o'clock in the morning, can't sleep. If the chatbot helps you do a breathing exercise and reframe some of the thoughts that have kept you from sleeping, and encourages you to go back and sleep rather than showing you things that keep you engaged forever, then yes. Or if you have, as a teenager, you've been, let's say, bullied, and you need to discuss this, but you don't want to go to your parents. So technology can really bridge that moment. But a child that is abused at home, that doesn't have a support net, that is vulnerable physically and psychologically, and maybe left alone, well, the chatbot's not going to solve that problem. It's the same for not just for youth, also the same at work. You can't yoga, breathe, or chat your way out of a toxic workplace. What you need is support, maybe from a chatbot, and the understanding that you need to change something more than just what you can do on a personal level. So it's not going to fix a company's toxic culture. No. And I think the devil sits in the detail, as always with tools. They can be fantastic, but they can also just be a way to not look at the real problem
Should its function, not its label, define its regulatory class? I mean, where's the line between an AI coach and an AI therapist? And who's responsible if something goes wrong?
By definition, a therapist, as we understand it, is someone who has a license, has passed certain things, etc., and it's a human. Now we have machines coming and doing part of that. What we call them, you know, is the terminology going to solve the problem? I don't think so, because we used to call ourselves AI chatbot when it was still a niche product, when people really went there for mental health. Now an AI chatbot or AI companion, everyone thinks of ChatGPT, right? So that the meanings have changed, the terminology is messy, muddy. You can't call yourself AI therapist anymore, because there are bills now and laws, and that's fine. But on the ground, those millions of people, they have their own terminology. For example, they call Earkick an AI therapist, whether we want it or not. If you don't play around with it, if you don't get educated on what is what and what's the difference, terminology is not going to solve it, and bans or bills are also not going to solve it. I'm actually very happy that there is regulation coming our way, because that means we need to talk about it. And now I would like to add to the talking, the acting, and really, working with the stuff and getting your own opinion on that, listening to your children. Why do they use it? How do you use it? What does it give them, and what does it take from them? Talking to the lonely senior who has nothing but the bot, talking to a woman who's just given birth and nobody wants to listen to her, talking to the man who has been left by his wife and never practiced to talk about his feelings, right? So millions of stories that we need to surface, look at, and then come up with good regulation.
Illinois and Nevada have banned AI for mental health treatment. The state of Utah requires therapy chatbots to protect health information and disclose they're not human. And about 2 days ago, Senators Josh Hawley and Senator Blumenthal just introduced the GUARD Act to ban AI companion chatbots for minors. And then sometime back, the Kids Online Safety Act, COSA, had passed the Senate 91 to 3, but it's got stuck in the US House of Representatives over free speech concerns. According to you, since you're working and building in this space, which regulatory approach would make the most sense to you?
So the ideal way would to really have all stakeholders, and that includes youth, by the way, have a say in this. I, for example, I give you an example. I do like the fact that, according to California, the providers of phones will be charged, or not charged, but they are responsible for making sure that when the parent buys a phone for the child, that the age is registered, because this takes responsibility for that out of each app creator, and gives it to the store, the phone creator. I think that's a good move, a very good, a fair move. You buy your child a phone, you ought to say how old it is, and you ought to acknowledge that you want your child to have a phone. Okay. Other things are kind of difficult because it's so easy to go around, right? I'm just going to give you an example. Yes, I think it's important that the disclosure is clear. This is a AI and not a human, absolutely. But just put yourself in the shoes of a 16-year-old, is starting to discuss and gets to a point where he opens up or she opens up, and they may say something that sounds towards suicidality, and then bam, you get a huge banner in your face that says stop, or oh, you can no longer talk because you've been here too long, or you are you're maybe suicidal. We want nothing to do with this. I do understand why this makes sense from liability and safety side, but if I put myself in the shoes of a 16-year-old, this is going to absolutely frustrate him or her, because they have come to a point where they wanted to talk about it. And now it's like, no, no, go away with your problems. I don't want you, right? Do I have a solution? I think it can be built, yes. But in a normal conversation, if it was your child that came and opened up, and you go from talking about what you have for breakfast over to how school was, and then it gets into the interesting part where they're opening up to you, you don't do that. You don't say, "Oh, stop," right? You have reached a threshold, and now we're going to call the police. This is how it feels to someone that is going through the currently practice way or journey of being blocked or being kind of called out as soon as it enters a certain territory. And mind you, on the other side, those companies, it's not about the children that they're doing this. It's not about the youth. It's about liability. It's about saving their own skin, right? And for one company to say that there are millions of people who talk about mental health, that the problem is all solved like within weeks, that to me is a slap in the face because it's not that easy. It's much more nuanced.
Many of these mental health apps avoid regulation by not collecting personal data. How can regulators enforce safety measures like crisis interventions while still, we want to respect users' anonymity and privacy? How is that possible?
At Earkick, for example, my company, we don't even get in that territory because you don't have to register. There is no need to know your name. There is no need to know where you live and what you do and all that. To be helpful, it's not needed. So first of all, build it into it, right? But why do people ask, or why do companies ask? Because they can then better market. They can sell that data. They can they can do a lot of things with that, right? So I think first of all, whatever is free needs to be defined as what is happening so that it can be free. Privacy is absolutely possible. It's technically possible. Do something that is safe because otherwise we wouldn't have these apps that some parents buy on top of their phone that can make sure that they're alerted to content that is not good for their kids. So technically, it's not a problem. You just need to want to do it. And the other thing is, again, where is the money? Where does the money? Where's the incentive? Who is profiting from keeping someone in there? Now, let's say we have a platform that is really for mental health that really wants to do a good job. Okay, now you can build a very nuanced and empathic and very personal way that understands the user, accompanies him, her, and when a certain threshold is passed, engages in a way that makes it very seamless to see, let's say, the right specialist, or to be, to create a really good handoff escalation that is not so abrupt and, hey, no, go away. I think that is technically possible, and I think this is going to have to happen very, very soon. Mind you, not everyone who's in a crisis wants to talk to a human. Not everyone who is maybe having suicidal ideation is helped by just pushing them into some waiting room of a therapist. So what we need to do for a good solution is understand all these people to a very, very deep degree and figure out how to best nudge, transition, help guide them from where they are now and how they like to communicate, like to accept help, to eventually where the help is that they would accept. Why? Because if we push help down their throats at all costs just so we can do this, we're not going to reach the level of improvement and real support that they deserve.
How can regulators trace accountability? I mean, should AI mental health tools be required to show some kind of a reasoning trail? Even if, today the large models are largely opaque, it's very hard to get some kind of an explainability as to why a chatbot kind of responds in a certain way. But here we are talking about mental health advice. What is your perspective on this?
Yes, there is there are RTCs. Maybe Therabot did something, but real data from real users in the wild, like in the world, and how this all works. I think that is something that can be required, um, and that is something where regulators need to work towards. Um, I'm not saying everyone has to, publish their proprietary algorithms, but there are perfect ways to show how you build it, how you put in guardrails, how you're testing, how you're challenging, what you do, how you escalate. All these things, they can perfectly be transparent. And that's where we can really get very productive and constructive in a positive way. Again, we're at the incentive, if you have to say, hey, look, actually I'm only after the millions of ad dollars, and actually the next thing I want to do is sell you erotica. Well, that we should be able to see that and to call it out, and to make a decision. Yes, I want to be, yeah, I want to be sold ads, or yes, I want to be, I don't know what, but then I know what I'm getting, and I know what I'm paying for. For now, it's very opaque. It's everything that has free on it is probably not free. And I think there's a lot that regulation can do there.
AI systems often reduce emotions to labels like anxious or sad or basic those things. How can we regulate or design systems to ensure they don't flatten or misread nuanced, culturally specific expressions of emotions, Karen?
The question is a bit, who is in charge of this? I if you go out and ask a child or a youth, yeah, even young adults, to explain what they're feeling, they will probably tell you one of five emotions. So if we're talking about meeting people where they are, that's why you have to start. So you have to make it easy first. So I'm not against putting things like anxious, these buckets, no problem with it. But what I encourage is not to stay there. So if that is your entry door to speak about how you're really feeling, how your emotions are playing out in you, start there. That's fine. But do not stay there. So don't put labels for the label's sake. Labels are, or buckets are, to make a conversation be easier, be started. And hopefully a technology, a human, someone who supports you, is going to help you be more nuanced about how you speak about your emotions and about your thoughts. But again, it's not like it's taught somewhere, maybe at home, hopefully, but it's not something that you address in kindergarten. It's not something you address in school. So we have this challenge of, it's not just the technology that has to evolve. It's everyone, every touch point of a youth, yeah, on social media, but also offline, where people throw around labels without knowing what they say or what they mean. There's a lot to do around there. First, of when I was little, it was taboo, right? So there weren't any labels. It wasn't talked about. And now it's always the other side of the pendulum. Everything is a trauma, and everything is toxic and narcissistic and all that. And it's creating another problem, right? But it's not a tech problem per se, it's a societal problem.
Companies historically have experimented in those regions with things that they would probably get slapped on the wrist here. Is there a danger that you might see some of that be set forth in those parts of the world?
Good technology, good bot, a good AI is perfectly capable of growing with you, evolving with you, and understanding what you what who you are, what you need, right? But, and here comes the big thing, what does it need? It needs memory. And here we're talking about a topic that will become huge very soon. You can only serve someone when you have memory. And you can learn from that. You can only connect the dots between someone talking about that life doesn't make any sense anymore, and the next time they check in, they ask for a bridge or for bridges, right? You can only address this adequately if you have memory. And memory is something that neither the big, I'm not going to point fingers, but neither the big ones really have worked out, nor, the small ones. At Earkick, we very early, we worked hard on the memory because we knew that someone wants to be heard and remembered also for details. I'm saying this, but it's not trivial. It's something that needs a lot of work. So now to your example, if you go to, let's say, population or a part of the world that is very different from the others, very remote, let's say, good technology, with very good memory, with the right intentions, and with good database and science base is going to have no problem if you are N1. But you have to want to do this.
You ready? Transparency or privacy?
Privacy.
Okay. AI in mental health, yes or no?
Yes.
Security or accessibility?
Both, but first accessibility for the many reasons that I have seen working with Earkick.
Okay. Fairness in AI or accuracy in AI?
Oh man.
As I said, we're going to make you think.
I don't believe fairness is really possible, so let's go for accuracy.
Accuracy. Okay. Is AI a greater risk or an opportunity for society, according to you?
Opportunity, absolutely opportunity.
Opportunity. Should teen access require parental consent, or should they be available direct?
Right now, I would say it should require parental buy-in, absolutely, and responsibility if we're at that.
Okay. Then let me take it a step further. Should companion chatbots be banned for teens or minors? Let's just put it this way.
Ban the phone first.
Okay, ban the phone first. Okay. So, what is the single most misunderstood aspect of AI in mental health? Very briefly.
One of the most misunderstood parts is that we immediately jump to it's either AI or a human. And that's just simply not the discussion we should have.
Okay, that's a good one. It's not either or. Okay, then let me ask you one thing that AI can do better than humans in mental health.
Memory.
Finally, Karin, one insight about human emotion that AI has taught you. That's a hard one.
Yeah. AI has taught me, let's make it this very personal. AI has taught me that I'm mostly wrong about myself. And not wrong in the terms of 100%, but we're full of stories that we tell ourselves. AI is very good at looking through that. We can embezzle people with stories, we can tell them and stuff, but AI is very straightforward. And it has shown me a lot of blind spots that and then not necessarily as a as a coach or a therapist, just by showing me the data.
Karin, really thank you so much for joining us and for the critical important work that you're doing at Earkick. And this is a very critical topic for so many families and people around the world. Policymakers are really busy right now. I can tell you there's so much activity going on in the US and other countries. And for our listeners who want to learn more about Karin and her work. You can find her at LinkedIn, and you can also go to the Earkick website at earkick.com. And thank you for our listeners. This is Regulating AI podcast. If you like our podcast, please like, download, and forward. And until next time, please stay informed and stay engaged. And let's keep working towards AI that truly serves humanity. Karin, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. There were so many other questions, but we ran out of time. But really, you've been a great guest.
Thank you so much. You've been a great interviewer.
Thanks for tuning in to the Regulating AI podcast with Sanjay Puri. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought. Share it with someone curious about the future of AI, and join us next time for more stories and insights from the leaders shaping what's ahead. Right here on the Regulating AI podcast.